Well, hello, welcome back to the show. Today I'm talking about music. I'm doing a deep dive not into a band, not into a genre, but into you. I know that sounds weird, but specifically your voice as a potential music journalist or music reviewer. Now, that might sound vague at first. What does your voice even mean, right? But if you're someone who writes about music or wants to, this is where it all starts because music is subjective. And in a world where algorithms can recommend what to listen to, what cuts through the noise isn't just what you say about music, it's how you say it. So let's start at the beginning. What kind of music hits you in the gut? Not what you think you're supposed to like, not what's trending. I mean the stuff that grabs you, the raw energy of punk rock, the haunting production in an electronic track, or maybe the intimate storytelling of indie folk, or any number of things, you know? It's really up to you what you want to do. Ask yourself, what do I actually care about when I listen? Lyrics, sonic experimentation, the cultural moment, or zeitgeist, as they say, that a track captures. Maybe it's something like that Billie Eilish line where she said, "Think I forgot how to be happy, something I'm not, but something I can be." Now, put aside whether you even like Billie Eilish or not. Even though I'm not a mega fan of hers, I can still see how that kind of writing can stop a person, make them think, make them feel a certain way. It almost demands a response, lyrics like that. And that response, that why, that is the root of your voice if you're going to write about a Billie Eilish song. So I have a bit of a confession to make. There was a review that I came up with for this podcast for an Evanescence album, but then I kind of dropped it because I realized that what I had written was not particularly interesting to me, and so it was sort of a lost episode. So if an album doesn't really inspire you, it's probably going to show up in your writing. So you almost have to be inspired even if the album itself didn't really grab you. That's really one of the challenges of reviewing things. If you weren't moved in some way, well, your review probably isn't going to be moving people that much either. And that's really an obstacle to success as any sort of reviewer or critic or whatever you want to call it. So once you figure out what lights you up, start digging deeper. Ask why it resonates. Is it personal nostalgia, artistic innovation? Is it the rebellion in the music, one of the qualities that I sometimes appreciate? The technical skill. Sometimes I can appreciate a simple, straightforward Johnny Cash style track, but sometimes, I can listen to shred guitarists like Buckethead or something like that. So, there's something to look for in most genres, in my opinion. It's not that I like every single genre or every single artist out there, but I try to take the good with the bad. So, for example, with the band Kiss, I'm not a huge fan of them, and I can't say that I listen to them very often or anything, but I can nevertheless respect the band Kiss as being influential and, of course, successful and all of that kind of stuff. So, to my mind, that would make for a more well rounded review if I can give at least a smidgen of respect to an artist and respect their legacy a little bit, at least acknowledge the fact that they are successful. That makes a difference. If people read that, they see you're being relatively fair. You're not just trying to be controversial for the sake of being controversial, although let's face it, some people are successful just because they are trying to whip up some sort of negative response from people. That's not really my approach typically. I don't really have that sort of style. And maybe that makes me a relatively boring reviewer or critic or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, it's what I feel comfortable with. And I rarely ever just say that something sucks. Although I did make an episode talking about how a certain song was the worst song ever written. I won't get into that right now, but there are exceptions to every rule, I guess I'll put it like that. And you might want to ask, maybe there's something that you can't quite explain yet, but it's there when it comes to the quality that drags you in. You might want to explore that as sort of an interesting topic in music. That's, I guess the word is je ne sais quoi if we're getting fancy in French with it. The undefinable quality that some songs have that are really tricky to pin down and explain. That could be an interesting topic unto itself, and it might inspire you to dig deeper into trying to understand why an artist or a genre or maybe an album hits you a certain way. And you can write these reasons down, try to get specific, and that's really possibly a foundation for you. And immerse yourself in the music scene if possible. Read music journalism like you're studying it. The big names, the indie blogs, even random rants. You might you might want to get some inspiration from that. And you might want to read differing points of view instead of being all defensive of somebody that you love. Sometimes it can be interesting to see, oh, why does this person hate this artist? Is there perhaps something to that critique? And of course, there's a danger there that you're going to end up second guessing your own musical tastes, or if it's a movie or a TV show, your taste in that form of media. But the whole point here is that you're sort of broadening your perspective. So if you don't let it get to you too much, it shouldn't actually impact you, and it'll just augment how you see the well, whatever you're looking at, the artist or the album or any number of things. So also pay attention to style. Some writers go deep and cerebral, others keep it snappy and street level. Ask yourself what works, what bores you, what feels real, and keep in mind that, as the saying goes, there is no such thing as a good first draft. So stop worrying about being perfect. Just start writing. Reviews, rants, interviews, personal takes, long essays, meme breakdowns could be important nowadays. But whatever seems appropriate for you. The more you write, the more your voice emerges. And maybe you'll find that sometimes you have a sarcastic tone, other times you might want to have a different tone. You might say, this could work, I guess. I'm a genius anyway. You might want to be cocky and arrogant about it sometimes. And some people are that way just naturally. And honestly, embrace that energy sometimes. Be bold, be weird, be you. You can be a jerk. And if it's something you're comfortable with, then I guess be that jerk. And you might pay a price for it down the road or maybe even immediately. But maybe it's your honest self, and maybe it's more of a pure approach that will actually work better for you. I guess whatever you are prepared to live with, if you can sleep at night with a certain style of writing that is sort of overtly hostile and drags others down, then I guess whatever. If that's the lane that you want to travel in, then more power to you, I guess. Although, if you critique me, of course, I'm going to I'm gonna be pissed at you about that. But the point is, it's largely about you and what you are trying to say. So test different formats and tones. You want to write like you talk a lot of the time, so do that. But sometimes you might prefer more formal analysis with citations, almost like an academic sort of thing. Although watch out, if you do that, you might be accused of using AI or being AI because anytime you adopt sort of a professional or academic tone these days, that's what some people will immediately suspect. So that can be cool too. Just make sure it fits what you're trying to say and who you're saying it to. And you might want to pepper in a few things that will clearly remind people that it is your voice that is speaking, even if you're sort of in a more professional tone, or however you want to look at it. So, the gist is, if you're writing fiction, blog posts, or personal essays, lean into a conversational tone. I don't know why I said pone. But anyway, um, yeah, do that. Make it feel like you're talking, not lecturing. But if you're going for a pro academic or journalistic sort of job, then you might want to keep it tight, structured, and precise. The bottom line is style isn't just about rules, it's about impact. Use whatever gets the message across best and what you think you're capable of living with. Because again, that could be important. And as your writing evolves, your voice sharpens and you'll start to notice it, like a melody you didn't realize you'd be humming this whole time or something like that. And don't work in a vacuum. Get out there, engage, maybe join forums, go to shows when you can sometimes. Maybe you're not the biggest social butterfly, but if you're going to talk about music, you should do that. I should do that way more often myself. I don't go to shows very often, so maybe I'm a little bit of a hypocrite here, but I'm also not really that much of a music journalist these days. But I I hypothetically dabble in it for this podcast these days. And of course, you can talk to fans. You can direct message the band whose demo rocked your world. And the music scene is alive. Let it feed your perspective. And remember, your voice will change, and that can be a good thing. Stay curious, stay honest, stay obsessed with the music that makes you love music, because your passion shows up on the page or on the screen or in the audio or the video. And that's when people might start listening. Who knows? And like this podcast is definitely not particularly successful, and people might mock it for that and all that sort of thing. Or a person like myself could end up feeling depressed because it's not a runaway freight train of success. But it can't be about that. You're probably going to start off small, so don't expect immediate success. Keep at it. uh, Keep it as a bit of a serious project, but maybe with a hint of fun. You're doing this for a reason. There's got to be a sort of mission aspect to it, because if you're expecting to immediately rake in the cash doing this, well, you're probably mistaken, because most people are not going to be immediately successful. And if you are, well then hey, congratulations. That's awesome. But most people, they're going to have some struggle, and they might not be prepared for that psychologically, and they might not be prepared for if there is a lack of support among the people that they know. You might be a bit of a lone wolf, and you have to just, if that's the case, you might just have to turn off your emotions a little bit and just treat it as something you do as like a hobby, but maybe a little bit of a serious hobby. You can have a little bit of both kind of merged in together with each other. And well, I think I've said enough here, so thanks for hanging out with me in the audio world. And if this episode hit home, then feel free to share it with another writer or music nerd who's trying to find their voice. And if you're interested, if you got a favorite line or a musical moment that shaped you, feel free to hit me up about that. I'd like to hear about it perhaps. I don't know if I'd do an episode on it or something, but it could be an interesting little story. There are many interesting stories that fans can tell about the the music that they listen to. And until next time, write what moves you, and the rest will follow.